He departed that morning for a standard 2-day business journey. This was commonplace, it happened frequently. Our farewell kiss at the threshold was perfunctory, swift, and mechanical. As the door secured behind him, I pivoted into the stillness of the home feeling a mixture of liberation and unease. I foresaw no significant disruptions. The established pattern had evolved into a source of comfort. Tranquil mornings, spotless counters, neatly stacked laundry, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and furniture polish. Then, piercing the calm, the doorbell chimed. It was his grandson, not related by blood, having been adopted into the family years prior. Now 25, he was visiting for the summer. I hadn't encountered him in several years. He had matured, taller and broader, possessing a more deliberate gait, as if he perpetually listened before making a move. Upon opening the door, his gaze held mine for a few moments longer than typical. Not disrespectfully, just a lingering, contemplative look. It startled me, yet I offered a smile, invited him inside, and prepared coffee as if it were any ordinary visit. The initial evening unfolded without overt tension. However, I observed how he examined the framed photographs on the wall, how his fingers traced the edge of the hallway table, suggesting he was recalling more than mere objects. From the kitchen, I watched him. Not intentionally, simply out of inquisitiveness. His posture appeared relaxed, but his eyes remained vigilant, observant. Later, standing in the hallway folding laundry, clad only in a light cotton robe, the type I wore solely when alone, I heard a floorboard creak nearby. Turning slightly, anticipating nothing, I found him there. I'm unsure how long he had been present, and I refrained from asking. He offered no apology, merely meeting my gaze in a manner that ignited a low, vibrant warmth across my skin. Not desire, not immediately. But an awakening, a heightened awareness. I could have tightened the robe. I chose not to. That night, sleep eluded me longer than usual. The refrigerator's hum from the hallway seemed amplified. The bed felt excessively spacious. I pondered the steadiness of his eyes when they met mine. I considered my shoulders, wondering if they retained an appearance worth noticing. My husband hadn't regarded me that way in the past 5 years. Not from a lack of love, but because routine had rendered me unseen. Sometime after midnight, I rose for tea. Darkness enveloped the house, save for the faint glow beneath the kitchen light. He was already present, barefoot, leaning against the counter, sipping a warm beverage. I hesitated, taken aback, but he simply smiled and inquired if I desired some. I affirmed. We sat opposite one another, hands cupped around matching mugs, without physical contact or speech for a considerable time. The silence wasn't awkward. It felt substantial, as though an old, unspoken matter had settled between us, awaiting acknowledgement. "When did you cease painting?" he abruptly asked. I blinked. "I haven't painted for years." "I'm aware," he stated. "Your brushes used to be in that vase by the window." He remembered. The impact of this realization struck me profoundly. My husband hadn't even registered when I stored them away. The quiet between us grew warmer, softer. He made no move to close the distance, it wasn't necessary. I sensed the internal shift without any physical prompting. Sleep remained elusive that night, and for the first time in years, selecting my undergarments the next morning was guided not by comfort, but by the sensation they created beneath my clothes. Invisible to others, yet known to me, and that significance mattered. The morning air, carrying a damp sweetness through the open kitchen window, permeated the skin almost unnoticed. I moved through the house with measured deliberation, as if a part of me sought to experience each motion more profoundly. The robe was exchanged for a light blouse, subtly transparent in the morning sun, and linen trousers that gently hugged my hips. I omitted a bra. Not as a provocative gesture, merely because I preferred not to wear one. He was in the backyard, bare-chested, rinsing the old stone patio. The sun had already imbued his skin with a soft luster. I lingered in the doorway longer than required, coffee mug in hand, observing him, allowing my eyes to absorb his movements. My scrutiny wasn't detached. I wasn't evaluating him as a mother-in-law or hostess. I was simply noticing, and felt no guilt in doing so. Our conversation that morning was minimal, limited to casual remarks over toast and eggs. Yet, silence had acquired a new quality between us, charged, not uncomfortable. I questioned whether he sensed it too, or if I was constructing something merely to alleviate the emptiness within me. Around midday, I transported a load of laundry to the utility room, the most secluded area of the house. The light there was gentler, diffused through an old curtain, carrying the scent of detergent and summer towels. Kneeling to sort the pile, I reached for the soft cotton of one of his t-shirts. Then, I heard footsteps, unhurried, measured. He halted directly behind me. I didn't turn. I sensed his presence, the warmth of his body mere inches away. My breath hitched, not from fear, but from the intensity of the stillness. My fingers clutched the fabric of his shirt, inexplicably, I didn't release it. He crouched beside me. Our arms brushed, a slow, intentional contact. His skin felt warm, slightly moist from the sun. I became motionless. My throat felt parched, but I didn't withdraw. "You consistently smell like oranges," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. "I use citrus soap," I responded, my own voice unfamiliar, lower, raspier. We both continued to gaze downward, the laundry serving as a pretext between us. Simultaneously, our hands moved, reaching for a towel, our fingers making brief but significant contact. Something fractured between us, too subtly to articulate. I looked at him then, not a glance, but a direct, sustained gaze into his eyes. And then, unexpectedly, he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't forceful. It wasn't hurried. It was inquisitive, exploratory. His lips were softer than anticipated. His hand didn't touch my skin, hovering instead near my waist, as if awaiting unrequested permission. I didn't repel him. I didn't even recoil. My body reacted before conscious thought could assess the repercussions. When he drew back, his expression held no apology. No shame, only a breathlessness mirrored in my own chest. We remained there for another second. Then I rose abruptly, my legs less stable than desired. I folded the towel still in my grasp and walked out without speaking. Yet, I didn't feel sullied. I didn't feel culpable. I felt intensely alive. I spent the remainder of the day in the garden, feigning herb pruning while my mind replayed the kiss in slow motion. Not out of a desire to relive it, but because I couldn't cease. That night, settling into bed, I checked my phone habitually. A message from my husband appeared. "Nothing dramatic, just miss you. Hope he's not causing trouble." I composed a reply, "All is well here." Quiet. I stared at the screen before sending, deleted it, then retyped the same words. Sent. It was untrue, naturally. Nothing felt quiet any longer. He materialized in the kitchen doorway early the following morning as I poured coffee. His hair, still damp from showering, clung slightly to his forehead. He wore a simple t-shirt that draped his shoulders with a softness compelling a longer look. Neither of us spoke initially. The atmosphere between us felt too recently altered for trivial conversation. "I'm meant to attend a gallery exhibition in the city," he stated finally, casually, as if the timing wasn't meticulously chosen. "He purchased 2 tickets but is unable to go. Asked if you'd accompany me instead." He avoided my gaze as he spoke. His eyes remained fixed on the counter, his finger tracing a water ring near the coffee pot, yet I observed the tension in his jaw. The offer held no innocence, a fact known to both of us. Nevertheless, the words themselves were straightforward, logical, practical. I agreed, not instantly. A pause lingered, just sufficient to simulate deliberation. Internally, however, my response was immediate and resolute. The prospect of hours in a car with him, removed from the sanctuary of our routines, sent a current through my skin. I knew precisely what attire I would choose, not overtly revealing, but a dress possessing enough structure to affirm I had a body deserving attention. The drive was extensive, the highway level and monotonous. He didn't play music. I didn't request any. The silence between us felt intimate, not tense. At one juncture, reaching for a water bottle, our fingers brushed. Neither of us withdrew. That alone conveyed volumes. "Were you always this reserved?" he inquired, eyes fixed on the road. "I'm not reserved," I replied, watching the fields blur past. "I simply haven't had a reason to speak." He nodded slowly, saying nothing further. It wasn't necessary. He comprehended. That understanding drew me to him more powerfully than anything else, his capacity to perceive the things I left unsaid. The gallery was neither large nor bustling. It smelled of aged wood and turpentine, the paintings raw, textured, personal. I moved between canvases while he followed a step behind, occasionally offering a comment, but predominantly observing me. I could sense it, not merely the weight of his gaze, but its gentleness. It didn't dissect me, it enveloped me, almost protectively. Later, at the hotel, I lingered under the shower. The water cleansed nothing. It only heightened the reality of everything. Drying myself slowly, wrapping a towel around my chest, I entered the room. He stood at the window, leaning on the frame, gazing outward. When he turned, his eyes met mine and held steady. There was no trace of shame or uncertainty. Only that constant, quiet intensity one was beginning to desire. I could feel the contour of my waist beneath the towel, the residual heat from the shower clinging to my skin. For the first time in years, I was conscious of myself as a woman. Not a wife, not a hostess. Simply me. "Are you content with him?" he asked. I offered no answer. Not due to ignorance, but because articulating it would render it too definitive, too irreversible. I turned, stepped into the adjoining room, and perched on the bed's edge. I left the door ajar. It wasn't necessary to close it. That served as my response. The silence following the trip extended for days. I avoided being alone with him, though not obviously. I didn't sequester myself in rooms or fabricate errands. I merely became efficient. Exiting the kitchen upon his entry, taking longer showers, spending more time pruning hedges that required no attention. I rationalized it as self-preservation, a reset, believing that withdrawal now might preserve a claim to innocence. That if nothing further transpired, perhaps it wouldn't signify anything. But it did. It resided in my muscles, in the involuntary twitch of my fingers upon seeing his shoes by the door, in the way my breath caught hearing his voice in the adjacent room. My body had already inclined towards him, even while my feet remained stationary. He exerted no pressure, not once. Which exacerbated the situation. His presence was quiet, respectful, yet utterly aware. There was no awkwardness about him, only patience. That kind of patience is more perilous than coercion, it permits one's own desires to resonate louder in the quiet. One afternoon, passing the living room, I noticed his phone on the coffee table, screen illuminated. A notification, a photograph sent from an unrecognized number. Curiosity prevailed. I glanced. It was me. A picture captured in the hotel, in the gallery room with the ochre walls. I was laughing, one hand tucked behind my ear, head slightly tilted. He must have taken it discreetly. I didn't appear beautiful. I appeared alive. Below it, he had written, "You seemed more yourself that day than I've ever witnessed." I closed the message swiftly, heart pounding, not from fear of exposure, but from recognition. I had no recollection of that specific moment, yet I knew its authenticity. That night, I opened the drawer of an old dresser, long unused. At the bottom, beneath scarves and old stockings, lay a bra untouched for years, lace-trimmed, pale plum, the kind worn when I believed the manner of undressing mattered. I put it on. It fit, just barely. But the sensation struck me, how it made me feel more present within my own skin. It wasn't about him. Not entirely. It concerned recalling something I had allowed to fade, the sensuality of dressing solely for oneself, the thrill of knowing the fabric brushing against my ribs beneath an ordinary blouse. I prepared tea and walked past his door without knocking. I had no strategy, no prepared lines. But an internal force refused to remain in the limbo between desire and fear. A few minutes later, I knocked once, a soft, almost inadvertent sound. He opened the door, looking unsurprised. Stepping back, he afforded me space, remaining silent. The room was dimly lit by a single desk lamp casting soft shadows across the bed and bookshelves. He didn't invite me to sit. I didn't move towards the chair. We stood facing each other in the quietude. His eyes searched mine, not with hunger, but with something weightier, a form of ache. I didn't intend to confuse you, he said. You didn't, I replied. A lengthy pause ensued. Our breathing filled the space, shallow and deliberate. I could discern the movement of his throat as he swallowed, the stillness of his hands. I took a single step closer. He didn't touch me, it wasn't required. The space separating us felt unbearable in the tenderest way. My body leaned forward almost imperceptibly. For a moment, our mouths hovered inches apart. I felt the warmth of his breath. The tip of my nose brushed his cheek, but I withheld the kiss. I stepped back. Good night, I stated, maintaining eye contact. Then I turned and departed, closing the door behind me as gently as possible. Not out of regret for being there, but because I wasn't prepared for the consequences of staying. He was in the kitchen before me the next morning, already dressed, moving as if nothing had altered. He didn't glance my way upon my entrance. Handing me a coffee cup without comment, we stood at opposite ends of the counter, two figures enacting a choreography of denial. My husband had called the previous night. His sister is unwell, he'd reported. He would be staying extra days. Asked me to tend to the roses. I assured him I would. I inquired if he needed anything. He declined. We exchanged pleasantries, ended the call. Neither mentioned the vacant bed. By noon, I had selected my favorite dress from the closet, soft navy, low-backed, short-sleeved. Unworn for years, not because it didn't fit, but due to a lack of occasions warranting the risk of being noticed. I showered slowly, letting water cascade down my spine. Shaved my legs, applied lotion meticulously. My underwear wasn't provocative, simple ivory silk, but its feel against my hips made me stand taller. I applied no perfume, obviousness wasn't necessary. By the time he entered the room, I had set the table, nothing extravagant, just pasta, fresh salad, a bottle of wine unopened for months. He hesitated upon seeing me. He wore a button-down shirt, slightly creased, as if changed into at the last minute. You look different, he remarked, his voice low, cautious. So do you. We ate in near silence, yet it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt focused, as if both conserving energy for an unavoidable event. The wine remained largely untouched between us, it wasn't being used as a crutch. Later, standing at the sink rinsing a plate, he approached from behind. I sensed the shift in the air before hearing his steps. He didn't touch me immediately. He simply stood close enough for me to feel the warmth of his chest against my back. You don't have to pretend, he stated. Not with me. I turned slowly, our eyes locking. Space for restraint had vanished. No silence could stretch wide enough between the yearning in my core and the certainty in his gaze. This time, the kiss wasn't abrupt. It was unhurried. His hand rested gently on my waist, posing the question his lips already answered. My fingers lightly touched the nape of his neck with an ache I hadn't known I could still harbor. The kiss intensified not in speed, but in significance. My breath mingled with his. I felt his heartbeat beneath my palm, steady, not frantic. Not forbidden. Deliberate. There was no apology in his touch. No hesitation in my response. I felt the curve of my spine against the counter's edge, his hand resting just above my dress's hem. Yet neither of us progressed further. The kiss itself was the focal point, everything else orbited around it. Time warped. We remained thus for minutes, perhaps longer. Indeterminable. Eventually, I drew back slightly, just enough to rest my forehead against his. "I don't know what I'm doing," I whispered. "You don't have to," he replied. "Just feel it." We didn't descend the stairs. We didn't undress each other. We sat on the living room floor, backs against the couch, legs outstretched in silence. My head rested lightly on his shoulder, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my arm. We didn't converse, words weren't needed. My body still resonated with the memory of his mouth, of how he hadn't demanded permission but had awaited it nonetheless. Then, cutting through the stillness, the sound of tires on gravel. He looked up. I sat bolt upright. Through the front window, partly obscured by curtains, we observed a familiar car slowly entering the driveway. My husband had returned early. The sound of his car idling in the driveway felt like a long-held breath finally released. For a moment, we remained motionless, staring out the window as if sheer will could make him vanish, turn the key, and reverse out of our hidden moment. But he didn't. The engine ceased. The ensuing silence felt sharper than any sound. I rose slowly, smoothing my dress with trembling hands. Not from panic, panic is chaotic and loud. This sensation was cleaner, more incisive, like a blade gliding just beneath the skin's surface. He moved behind me silently, yet I felt the tension emanating from him, like heat rising from damp concrete in sunlight. But the door remained closed. Seconds stretched into minutes. I peered again through the narrow gap in the curtain. The driver's side was vacant. No figure approached the porch. The passenger door was still shut. "He didn't come in," I stated, my voice unexpectedly quiet. "Perhaps he forgot something." "Maybe he's just passing through," he responded. Yet his tone lacked conviction, merely offering an explanation, any explanation. We continued to wait, but the anticipated climax never occurred. Eventually, the car rolled back slowly, turned out of the driveway, and vanished around the bend. He had come for a reason, then reconsidered. Or perhaps, sitting there observing the house, he'd noticed something, a shift in the curtains, the glow of the lights, that prompted hesitation. I'll never ascertain what he witnessed or perceived. I didn't return to the couch. I didn't look at him. I went upstairs, washed my face, brushed my teeth, changed into a nightgown with sleeves. Neutrality, an attempt to erase what had transpired an hour prior. The following morning was slow, silent. He averted my gaze, I permitted it. I poured coffee, folded napkins, arranged everything precisely, as if restoring order could sanitize what we had allowed to happen. By afternoon, he had packed. Mentioned needing to return to the city, something about an upcoming project, a deadline, vague words left hanging in the hallway. I didn't request him to stay. He didn't inquire if he should. We lingered by the door longer than necessary. He looked at me, truly looked, as if committing the angles of my face under the hallway light to memory. "I'm not sorry," he stated. "I never will be." I swallowed hard, lips parted, but words failed me. He leaned forward slightly, close enough to detect the faint citrus scent from the detergent on his collar, but offered no kiss. Not this time. He turned, opened the door, and walked out into the dry, golden afternoon. Hours later, I found myself seated in the same living room where we had kissed. Everything retained the imprint of his presence, the untouched wine glasses, the throw pillow bearing the faint impression of his back. I reached for my phone, hesitated, then searched for his name. No message, no call. Nothing communicable could lessen the ache in my ribs or occupy the void his departure created. That night, I lay in bed beside a pillow still carrying my husband's scent. I yearned to feel something: guilt, regret, anger. Yet all I experienced was rawness, not shame, just a soft, persistent throb where my restraint had once existed. By morning, I reached a decision I couldn't articulate even to myself. Packing a small overnight bag, unannounced, I took a train to the city. I informed no one, didn't even text him. I walked unfamiliar streets, past buildings belonging to other lives, letting anonymity envelop me like a second skin. It didn't feel like escaping. It felt like confronting. I wasn't fleeing something, I was moving towards the part of myself buried years ago beneath clean laundry and Sunday dinners. I located his apartment building by memory, not address. I didn't enter. Instead, I crossed the street, found a small cafe, and sat by the window, nursing lukewarm tea while observing his building opposite. Proximity to his world was sufficient. Sufficient for now, not to knock. I returned home just before dusk. The low sun stretched across the horizon, painting sidewalks in long amber lines. My feet ached from walking, not from distance, but from the tension held in my body all day, as if trying to contain something volatile within. No one had noticed my absence. No messages, no missed calls, no emergencies. It struck me as peculiar how easily one could vanish from their own life unnoticed. I wasn't saddened by it, I was intrigued, the kind of intrigue that compels touching a bruise just to feel its contours. That evening, I applied perfume unused for 20 years. A sharp floral blend worn on dates during our early marriage. Back then, it imparted a sense of daring, permission to occupy space. I spritzed it lightly behind my ears, across my collarbone. It didn't smell like my current self, but like who I had been, and perhaps who I still aspired to be. I wore it for no one. He wasn't present, and my husband hadn't yet returned from his sister's. Still, I wore it as if anticipating someone leaning close, remembering me. When he finally did return, it was unannounced. Entering with his usual composure, placing keys in the bowl near the door, kissing my cheek with the customary distracted affection, then a pause. He leaned back slightly, gently inhaling the air. "You're wearing that old perfume," he observed. I nodded casually. Found the bottle. Thought I'd wear it again. He looked at me, truly looked, for the first time in weeks. Not suspiciously, not yet, but with a blend of curiosity and uncertainty. As if trying to recall if I'd worn it recently for someone else. I turned away before he could form a conclusion. That night, we dined together. Polite conversation, the measured silence built over years of cohabitation without deep probing. I inquired about his sister. He provided a vague update, followed by a question that felt almost too nonchalant. "He's still here?" "The boy left days ago," I stated, unflinching. "Said he had work." He nodded. Took another bite of chicken. Remained silent. After dinner, I stepped outside with a glass of wine, sat on the back porch as the sky bruised into purple. I heard him moving inside, closing cupboards, rinsing plates, life reassuming its familiar shape. But I no longer inhabited it in the same manner. A message arrived on my phone. One word: still. I stared at it, heart thudding. Still wanting you. Still remembering. Still burning. I didn't reply. The next morning, the house filled with voices, guests arriving for my husband's birthday. Family, neighbors, a few colleagues. The type of gathering appearing effortless externally, yet requiring meticulous underlying coordination. I fulfilled my role, smiling in the kitchen, refilling wine glasses, nodding at oft-repeated jokes. Then I turned, and there he was, standing near the entryway. Crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled, jaw slightly tight, as if his presence was unintended yet unavoidable. I hadn't known he'd be there, no one informed me. He must have attended via someone else's invitation, perhaps assuming I'd be absent, perhaps hoping I'd be present. Our eyes met across the throng. The gaze held a breath too long. No smile from him, nor from me, yet something transpired between us regardless, an understanding, a wound reopening. Later, in the hallway, we passed, shoulders brushing lightly. "I never stopped," he murmured beneath his breath. "Neither did I replied, my voice barely perceptible. No physical contact occurred, nor was it needed. Every nerve in my body had already reoriented towards him. The days following felt like wading through water, everything slower, denser, saturated with an inescapable weight. He had departed again, returning to the city post-party. And yet, he hadn't. His presence lingered on the walls, the sofa cushions, the back of my throat. I didn't clean the hallway mirror he'd leaned against. I didn't wash the wineglass he'd used. I left them, not as mementos, but as confirmation I hadn't imagined it. My husband had grown quieter since the party. Not deliberate distancing, but the manner of someone starting to read between previously unnoticed lines. He posed no questions, but his pauses lengthened. His gaze lingered more often. And fleeting, subtle moments occurred when I caught him looking at me as if I were a puzzle he once believed solved. One evening, he returned home with a small black box. I presumed it related to work, a gadget, perhaps, or a garden hose part. But when he placed it before me on the kitchen table without comment, I opened it with a strange, shallow breath. Inside lay earrings, delicate gold with tiny emeralds. Not extravagant, but evidently chosen thoughtfully. I couldn't recall the last time he'd gifted jewelry without a holiday prompt. "You used to wear green," he said. "It always suited you." I stared at the earrings longer than necessary. He believed it a kind gesture, an unspoken offer of closeness. Perhaps it was. But all I felt was their weight in my hands. The way they gleamed, like an apology for something he hadn't realized transpired. I put them on that night, not from sentiment, but from a need to feel the contrast, the hard, cold metal against the heat beneath my skin. Later, alone in the living room, a photo album rested on my lap, unopened for years. Pages displayed images of us, vacations, birthdays, the mundane magic of domesticity. My hand hovered over one photo, me in the backyard, eyes closed, sunlit face. Peaceful, yet not vibrant. I turned the page. There, tucked between prints, was the gallery photo he'd taken, the one sent via message. My genuine laugh, mid-breath, unguarded. It didn't belong in the album, yet there it rested. He must have inserted it before the party. I held it, unable to look away. The next day, I entered the bedroom while my husband shaved. He turned, met my eyes in the mirror. His expression neutral, unreadable, yet shoulder tension betrayed him. "You've been distant," he stated quietly. "I've been elsewhere mentally," I replied, the closest approximation to honesty without causing devastation. He nodded, rinsed his razor. "Is it me?" I wanted to deny it, but couldn't. "I don't know," I admitted. That answer settled in the room like fine dust. Soft, yet pervasive. That evening, another message arrived. It wasn't a mistake. "It was you." 8 words, sufficient to ignite every nerve. I didn't respond. Instead, I stood by the window, earrings still cold against my earlobes, watching dusk slowly infiltrate the sky's edges. Tears didn't come, not from lack of pain, but because the ache had become familiar, almost welcome, like the intake of breath before a confession. The morning felt unusually still, no breeze, no birdsong. Even trees seemed suspended, the world holding its breath. I moved through the house like a phantom, light, cautious, present in each room but lingering in none. The decision had formed days prior, not as a singular epiphany, but developing gradually, like water seeping through soil. No dramatics, no slammed doors, just a quiet confrontation with the life constructed and the self-abandoned within it. I didn't inform my husband. No confession could be voiced without unraveling the shared fabric of years. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't detached. He was merely consistent, like a house unchanging despite rearranged furniture. Perhaps I once needed that consistency, but no longer. He left for work that morning unceremoniously, a cheek kiss, a comment about a meeting. I nodded, poured his coffee, watched him walk to the car through the kitchen window. His familiar, solid figure receded into the morning haze, yet felt insufficient. Upstairs, before our bedroom mirror, I regarded myself as he hadn't in years, without critique or expectation, simply looking. Not striving for beauty, but for reality. The earrings remained. I removed them gently, placing them back in the box, not rejection, but closure. He had attempted connection in his way, but one cannot return to someone oblivious to their absence. I opened the closet, retrieved the dress worn to the gallery. I didn't put it on, just held it against me, pressing fabric to my chest, inhaling the faint lingering trace of his cologne. No message arrived from him that morning. No still, no come, only silence. Yet his presence felt ubiquitous. Not spectral, but intrinsic, woven into my thoughts' lining. I sat on the porch for hours. The sun traversed the sky, painting the yard with shifting light and shadow. Neighbors passed, a delivery truck drove by, children biked distantly. Life proceeded, unaware, indifferent. Eventually, I stood, went inside, opened the writing desk's bottom drawer. There, amidst tax forms and old postcards, lay my sketchbook, untouched for over a decade. Pages stiff, pencil marks faded, yet undeniably mine. I flipped through forgotten drawings, still lives, cityscapes, incomplete faces. Turning to a blank page, I pressed pencil to paper. My hand trembled initially, unfamiliar, but lines emerged anyway. Slowly, then accelerating. Shapes, curves, textures. Not perfect, not even skilled, but mine. When I paused, the sky outside deepened to indigo. The house was silent. My hands smudged with graphite. And for the first time in perceived years, I felt something akin to peace. Leaving my husband wasn't necessary. Chasing the man whose touch awakened dormant parts of me wasn't necessary. I simply needed to cease pretending adherence solely to the role played within this house. He had seen me, truly perceived me, and I had permitted it. That couldn't be undone. But it didn't necessitate continuation either. When my husband returned home, I was at the stove, stirring something fragrant and simple. He kissed the back of my neck. I didn't withdraw, nor did I lean into him. That night, after he slept, I stood before the mirror a final time, not assessing lines or shadows, but meeting my own gaze. I was still present. And that would suffice.